Continuing Chapter 4 of Part 6. There is no indulgence of curiosity, no telling of tales brought back from the prison house of the sepulchre, no marvels, no self-gratulation upon the part of Jesus, no sense of exhaustion as if he had poured vital force from himself into his dead friend. Because just like his doctrines, it wasn't that he was more than the vehicle for it, which is a great thing in itself, right? The veil is dropped over any conversation Jesus might have had with his dear friend, and the most delicate silence preserved as to the display of feeling upon the part of Lazarus and his sisters at his restoration, and any loving thanks they may have heaped upon their benefactor. Even tradition does not venture upon repeating to us anything Lazarus may have been represented as saying of his sensations in dying, his experience of being dead, and his emotion upon the return of the soul to its seat in the body, and the reattachment of the cords of life, which had been snapped. And there are plenty of accounts before and after that supposed event. Tradition only tells us that Lazarus asked Jesus if he should die again, and when informed that there still lay before him the inevitable fate of humanity, he never smiled again. But there is no foundation for that. It is the unnatural fancy of some gloomy mind. Was it? Or was it something that was really being said about the thing? History tells us nothing more of Lazarus. In the beginning of the 2nd century, many of those whom Jesus had both healed and raised from the dead were still alive, according to Quadratus in Eusebius, HE 4:3. From this great miracle, the village of Bethany took the name of Lazarus, and to this day is called El Azaria or Lazaria. Well, even today, they've died. Apparently, everybody over 130 something is dead. But in my lifetime, in the past 10 years, there were 2 people. One died at 142, the other died at like 256 years old. So, it happens. But Jesus is about a century before people say, and the fact that people still confuse 2nd century Bible writers with people who would have known Jesus, any of the Jesuses, is an issue, right? With that account. Of Jews who witnessed the miracle, there were 2 classes. Those whom this proof of messiahship won to Jesus, and those who overwhelmed for a season by this display of power, which seemed to be omnipotence, nevertheless, had no intellectual or spiritual good from the spectacle, but went home chatting about it, or went about the priestly party, repeating it, and asking them what they thought about it, whether in mere gossip or through hostility. These people told the Pharisees what Jesus had done. The Sanhedrin was forthwith assembled to consider the state of affairs. Early in his public career, the Jews of Jerusalem had sought to kill Jesus as a Sabbath breaker. John 5:16 and 18. And not like he was the first person, but certainly they just did that to people they didn't like. Subsequently, in Galilee, the Pharisees had conspired with the Herodians to destroy him. Mark 3:6. The Sanhedrin had gone so far as to decree excommunication of anyone who should confess Jesus as the Messiah. John 9:22. Officers had once been sent to arrest him. John 7:25. And the people generally believed that the party in power would never rest until Jesus should be put out of the way. Nevertheless, the Sanhedrin had never formally decreed his death. But the raising of Lazarus brought matters to a head. When the council assembled, the first thing apparent to them all was their utter helplessness. So feeble is political power when opposed to moral force. The unarmed Jesus, having no authority, civil, military, or ecclesiastical, was gaining such hold upon the populace, and they could put no arguments, no authority, no influence before the people to counteract him. They acknowledged his miracles, the greatest learning and the greatest authority in the law, quite capable of detecting a trick and quite as willing to expose a fraud as modern minds, admitted that Jesus did many miracles. They did not deny what such multitudes declared they had witnessed, namely his raising of the dead. But again, he wouldn't be the first Israelite prophet that that's said about. Their utter spiritual stupidity is seen that they felt themselves bound to kill Jesus rather than to believe on him. Well, if you look at it, he wasn't asking to be believed in the Christian way. And we also should probably look at the fact that saying that people are stupid because, maybe it's just not presented to them in a way that they would accept. But it's not stupidity. Often it's quite the opposite. It's some sort of intelligence that ingrains them deeper into their conservative or liberal way of thinking. The latter should have been the rational conclusion, but state reasons prevailed. They should have said, he has done these great things as reported, or has not. It is so important a matter that we may well afford to put out our utmost resources to settle that question. If he has done these things, then he is the Messiah, and we must hail him as such. If he has not, we must take all possible pains to demonstrate to the popular mind that all this is nothing. Then the truth will prevail. Instead of which they admitted that Jesus did perform many miracles, and therefore resolved to kill him, as if that were the way to meet an acknowledged miracle. They said among themselves, if we let him thus alone, all will believe on him, and the Romans will come and take away both our place and our nation. This was the utter rejection of Jesus as their Messiah. In their opinion, he did not have the force to push himself against the Roman power and overthrow it. Well, every Messiah needs followed, and if their people are too enslaved to the professional worshippers, how are they supposed to overthrow the correct power that rules their nation? And let that be a lesson to everybody, right? He was not to be a conqueror, and if not a conqueror, he must not be allowed to go so far forward as to make himself a party and excite the Roman power to take such measures as should lead a popular uprising, which might be a sufficient excuse for the total extinction of the Hebrew nationality. And that was their great state reason. They did not see that if Jesus had the power to work these great miracles, their simple acknowledgement of the fact could do no harm, and then in any event, he that could raise the dead could repel the Romans, and if the whole affair were a delusion, it would shortly die out, and need not be kept alive by the notice of the Sanhedrim. One of the members of this council was Joseph Caiaphas in John 11:49. He is called high priest of that year. The office of high priest had fallen so low that it had lost nearly all that respect and almost awe which it formerly inspired. Well, being sellouts to the Romans, kind of carries on quite a bit. Nowadays, for hundreds of years, a lot of the top preachers in society have been chosen by, certain ruling families. 12 top ones and 200 other ones, and they kind of switch positions from decade to decade, and then there's ones that mix with them that aren't of that group, and seriously, it's a historical fact that this system is set in place, And, this group doesn't care about the Jews as a whole. So don't pull this, you think it's no, it's only a small number of them. 212 and family heads, basically. And, a couple dozen other family heads. And these people basically rule the world. Josephus tells us, Antiquities 18:2, that Valerius Gratus, the 5th governor of Judea, took the high priesthood from Ananus, also called Annas, and transferred it to Ishmael, whom he soon removed, substituting Eleazar, a son of Ananus. That next year he made another change, conferring the office on Simon, which Hebrew name would have been Shmawan. His Aramaic name, right? Who only held it for a year, when it was given to Josephus, named Caiaphas, not Josephus, the historian. See, now they clarify, but who was the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John that wrote the Bible? No, it wasn't the church father that was big at that time that wrote that wrote some letters. None of those could have been confused, right? No, well, they try to distract from that argument, because they really don't know, and they were told that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were written 50 or so years before any of them started to be written. But we held it through the public ministry of Jesus. It will be readily perceived how the pontificate fell into disrepute, and that the description of that year was the mode of expressing the popular contempt for the incumbents of that office at the time of this history. The more conservative and orthodox still held to Ananus as the lawful high priest, although Caiaphas enjoyed the office by political favor. In this meeting of the Sanhedrim, this Caiaphas said, "You know nothing, nor consider that it is expedient that one man should die for the people, and that the whole nation perish not." Now, one thing you might want to have when you do temple magic, probably maybe even get yourself a set of those 12 stones to fix yourself a breastplate. But I don't, you kind of want to figure out the right placement and stuff too. Anyways, in the meeting of the Sanhedrim, in my church we called it the Quorum of the 70 or something. Either way, it's a very conservative position. This Caiaphas, as people usually pronounce it, said, "You know nothing, nor consider that it is expedient for that one man should die for the people, and that the whole nation perish not." Now, they're going to try to twist that, but, seriously, hand over the person who's causing the problem, and the person that caused the problem, let's deal with them, rather than, us all have to deal with consequences, particularly when the Romans were in charge or whatever. Nowadays, some of the prophecies that the Bible talks about the Russians finally look like they might be about to be fulfilled. Who knows? This video may not be seen until certain things happen to Israel, as a result of a couple leaders doing stuff. John says that he did not speak that of himself, but that holding, however unrighteously, this high and holy office, the spirit of prophecy still lingering about the breastplate, which contained the Urim and Thummim, the lights and rights of God, spoke through Caiaphas, prophesying that Jesus was about to die for the nation, and not for that nation only, but also that he should gather together in one of the children of God who was scattered abroad. So see, again, this children of God thing, not exclusive to Jesus, not taken literally. The voice of Caiaphas, according to John, spoke with the mind of Caiaphas, did not comprehend. Well, people work themselves into states based on the working of these 114 chakras that we have and the various chemicals that we produce related to them. I've come across, that there's over 50 of them. It's likely more that, relate to our states that you call psychedelic states, sensations, thoughts, emotions that kind of are changed, perceptions, psychiatric states as a result of some of these chemicals. His saying settled the question. The death of Jesus was decreed. It was only needful to determine how to compass his direction. Now, the Aurim the Haurim wa Atumim, I think that's how you actually say it in the language of that time, they were likely 8-sided fluorite crystals. There's traditions about the dots that were on the crystals. So you had 2 crystals that had, so they had 16 dots, and they weren't the same, and that was interpreted via, where the light fell and all that, and there was scrying and stuff involved. So, and it's curious that the whole Joseph Smith thing includes mention of that, and it's like, where did he hear that? Because there wasn't any public traditions in print about that. And, they'd be fastened with silver or gold or something. It's actually not clear how they were. But, yeah, anyways, Jesus was aware. It was clear what Joseph